The following is a paid commercial program. The views expressed belong to its participants and are not those of the management and staff of WBBZ TV.
It's time for Political Buzz, the television forum to discuss politics and issues of interest for all of Western New York. Now, from the WBBZ television studio at the Eastern Hills Mall, this is Political Buzz.
Hello and welcome to Political Buzz. I'm John DeSciullo here on WBBZ TV. Niagara Falls, one of the great wonders of the world, right here in Western New York. First seen in the 17th century by Frenchman Robert de La Salle and Belgian priest Louis Hennepin, whose namesakes continue to be recognized in the region, along with the rich heritage of the original Native Americans who inhabited the area. Centuries later, Niagara Falls continues to attract people from all over the world. So with such a grand display of nature's beauty and power, why does Niagara Falls, New York continue to overflow, some say, with problems, politically and economically? Let's take a look. It's just blocks from the falls that, despite Herculean efforts to build up a once bustling business district that's moving forward, but urban blight still remains. The population is shrinking, it's aging, and it's dealing with concerns about crime and what kind of future they might be gambling with. A future that has held promise with the development of the world-class Seneca Niagara Casino and Hotel, but is it pulling profits out of local pockets? Has it helped or hurt development? Those questions remain while Niagara Falls dealt with a dispute between the Senecas and the state that stopped the flow of funds for more than 3 years. Now, luckily, that and all the sides recently came together to announce that Governor Andrew Cuomo and Seneca Nation President Barry Snyder had come to an agreement that will release $408 million in past casino revenue to the state, with Niagara Falls Mayor Paul Deister smiles that $89 million of that is headed into the coffers of the city. Mayor Paul Deister is here with us. This Democrat became a city councilman back in 2000 and won a landslide election in 2008. He is described as outspoken, involved, and passionate about the city that he leads. A regular contributor to our program, Niagara Falls reporter Tony Farina, will be here in a little bit. But we also have community activist Ken Hamilton. Ken Hamilton is a community activist. He's involved in the city, and we're going to hear his views on what he thinks of some of the developments that are going on in his hometown. And Peter Mio, the editor of the Niagara Gazette. I've worked with Peter in the past in the game of TV news, and we'll get his take on the politics of the Cataract City. So, gentlemen, welcome to the show. I appreciate you being here. Mayor Deister, I'll start with you. This agreement reached between the state, I know a lot of it had to do with racinos, and there was a lot of dispute there between the governor. You have a great relationship with the governor. Did that help move this forward?
I think it did, and I think it became important towards the end of the negotiation for Governor Cuomo to take a direct hand in talks with President Snyder. They tried to work through various other intermediaries, but it was symbolically very important to the Seneca Nation to be dealing directly with the governor, and I think he gets the lion's share of the credit for having worked this all out. But I think it's also the case that President Snyder was a very strong representative for Seneca Nation, but in the end willing to deal. And then both of them had very strong staffs, including legal advisors that worked on this over a period of many months.
Now, $89 million is coming into the city, but a lot of that's already really been spent. You're just paying back bills that have already been mounting up.
We don't have past due bills. What we did is we kept certain projects moving or paid for projects that had already been completed out of other accounts that will then be paid back with casino revenues. There is some $20-odd million that we pass through to other entities that are also very eagerly awaiting their share of casino revenues, including our tourism promotion agency, the Niagara Falls Memorial Medical Center, the Board of Education, the Transit Authority, the Underground Railroad Heritage Commission. So there are many entities out there that stand to benefit from the release of the funds.
Now, Peter, we'll get to you in just a little bit to talk about how you've been covering this story. But Ken, I'll come to you next as someone who's been a resident of the community and you see what's been going on. How do you think this money should be spent, and what do you think of the job that Mayor Deister's done so far?
You know, it's a tough job for anyone to do under the conditions of which we had to operate. I don't know if Mayor Deister could have done a better or worse job than anyone else. It's a heavy lift. How the money should be spent is that we need to invest in long-term projects that will be profitable for the city of Niagara Falls. Mayor Deister pointed out that part of the money goes to the education system. We can change, and this is my philosophy, we could change as much as we want with the money that we're getting from the casino, but unless we transform people's minds, we're only going to get the same result further down the road. We have to do anything is that in our city, it's unlike Buffalo, whereas the mayor and the Board of Education have a unique relationship. Our mayor and our city council has no relationship with the Board of Education other than that we share the same city. We finished 92 of 97 districts, and if you look around the district at towns like Amherst, Lancaster, and others, even though Lancaster is now starting to go through their issues, that the most prosperous communities are those with the best education systems. If we're going to improve Niagara Falls at all, we have to improve our education systems, because that's the only thing that will sustain anything that's positive that can come out of the casino monies.
Well, that's an interesting thought. Mayor, your response to that?
Well, I think education is critically important, and as Ken says, the mayor and city council, we don't run the school system in Niagara Falls, but we try to cooperate with the Board of Education. One of the things that's happening as part of the Regional Economic Development Council initiative undertaken by the Cuomo administration is we're trying to coordinate economic development activities, private sector investment, and what we're teaching our kids in school to make certain that starting at least in secondary school, we're preparing them for the jobs that are actually going to be there when they graduate. So I think there's a higher degree of coordination out there, but I would agree with Ken that there's nothing that's a higher priority than education for any city, and in particular for the city of Niagara Falls. You mentioned that we've lost population. Unfortunately, a lot of the population we lost when we lost some of our major industries back in the 60s, 70s, through into the 1980s, were the most educated people in our populace. They were the most mobile. They were the most in demand in other job markets. They stuck around for a while looking to see if they could find other jobs at the same pay level. When they didn't, they left. And that's an issue that we have to address.
Peter, as someone who's covering Niagara Falls with the Niagara Gazette, Ken brought up a good point about the council. And from what you've covered, it's no secret that I think Sam Frachon from the council and the mayor just seem to be at odds. And politically, even Republican New York State Senator George Maziarz. What is your take on what you've reported on and whether this political infighting or the perceived political infighting, what effect that has?
Well, I think it has a very negative effect. If I were an outside developer and with the internet, Google searches, Yahoo, and I am looking to invest, and I pull up Niagara Falls, New York, you see a ream of negative comments and the perception of the inability of the mayor and the city council, any political position in Niagara County, the inability to work together. And that could be a very scary situation for somebody who is looking to hopefully invest tens of millions of dollars. That do they perceive that there's going to be this roadblock, this obstacle going through City Hall, through the county courts in the county system for permits, whatever the case may be. So I think that has a very big negative effect.
Mayor Deist, you're a lifelong resident. You and your family in Niagara Falls, a prominent family. Ken, I would assume you're a lifelong resident in Niagara Falls in the area?
I'm still alive, so
there you go. All right, that's good to hear.
And
but Peter, you're here just a few years. What's your observation of what you've seen from Niagara Falls based on having been here for a few years?
Well, as I shared with you before the program, I consider myself the outsider looking in. I'm not from Niagara Falls. I've lived in 9 different states in my career, and the potential for Niagara Falls is just huge. With the number of visitors that come in, just the natural beauty, and I've shared this with many people. I spent many years down south. I have never met a friendlier group of citizens like I have in Niagara Falls. I've been welcomed at times. I know people are not pleased with the newspaper. Our obligation is to cover both the good and the bad. We try to cover as much good of what's going on in the community. But the potential for Niagara Falls, as I see, as a person that lives there, spends money there, is huge. And there just needs to be a more strategic approach between all parties, political differences aside. I think there needs to be a strategic master plan, people sitting at the table saying, okay, what do we need to do to get the city moving forward?
And Mayor Deist, are you doing that? I mean, despite the differences you have with others?
Yeah, actually, the city adopted a strategic master plan in 2009, and we're trying to implement, in particular, what were identified as the big moves in that strategic master plan. But it's difficult. I've been mayor now. I'm in my 6th year. All but 3 months of my administration, I've had to deal with the Great Recession. I'm a Democrat. I've had a Democratic governor the whole time I've been mayor, but I'm on my third Democratic governor. And I think one of the things to look forward to in the future is some greater stability in the governor's office, and I think a very strong and even growing commitment on the part of the governor's office to make certain that good things happen in Niagara Falls, because it's recognized Niagara Falls is important to the rest of Western New York. But I absolutely agree with Peter. There's a tremendous potential in Niagara Falls. We have to be careful that we don't become the obstacle to positive development in our own city. And I think we've had a tendency at times in the past to be parochial, to be insular. For not having had a vast experience of the world, we have sometimes a feeling of superiority. We can be know-it-alls at times. And I think it's important, for us to kind of step back, have a little bit of humility, and be willing to take, good, honest advice, even if it's sometimes critical, that comes from folks on the outside.
We have just about 2 more minutes left in this segment. I want to switch gears a little bit to talk about crime in the city and some of the things that we saw in the video. We saw some urban blight not far from the falls itself, and I know you have a new police chief that's in place. Ken, what's your take on the crime in the city? It seems to be, unfortunately, at an all-time high.
Well, when you start when you start to look at the correlation between successful communities and low crime, and Amherst, every year, first, second, or third safest community in America, the correlation that most directly applies is that you have an educated constituency, that the people know and understand that there's something waiting on the other side of that diploma for them and that they can reach it. We have to improve education to reduce crime, because when we start to look at who is incarcerated, and I've gone to the jails, the studies are out there, are people who have not finished school for whatever the reasons are. And in Niagara Falls, you look at 40% in Buffalo of graduation rate. That 40% is the same graduation rate in the city of Niagara Falls for African American males, who tend to be the people who are most apt to be in the criminal justice system.
You're linking education to a lot of the issues, not only with how the money should be spent that's coming in, but also to get an educated base and try to fight crime that way.
Absolutely.
Right. We are going to talk about the great Nik Wallenda and what that walk meant for Niagara Falls. We're going to hear from Tony Farina from the Falls Reporter. Ken, thanks for joining us. Good luck in the community up there in Niagara Falls.
Thank you very much.
And Political Buzz will be back with more voices to be heard right here on WBBZ when we return. And there he is, the great Nik Wallenda, a year ago walking over Niagara Falls. It was one of the most triumphant experiences I have ever witnessed, live and in person, and covering it for the ABC affiliate, and it was quite a significant event. Joining us now to talk about that and continuing the discussion on set, we now are joined by Tony Farina from the Niagara Falls Reporter and president of One Niagara. Tony, welcome to the show.
Thanks, John. Nice to be here, as always.
And Mayor, we were all together back then for the Nik Wallenda walk, and here we are a year later, and we just saw him walk over another great wonder of the world, the Grand Canyon. But what has that walk, the Wallenda walk over the falls, meant for the area?
Well, it created a bump in visitorship immediately, but I think you have to recall not everyone can change their vacation plans just because they've been blown away by the beauty of Niagara, watching the Wallenda walk. So the effect I think that you're going to see is over a long period of time. There could be someone who visits here in 10 years because of a positive impression they got of our region through the Wallenda walks. I think it's very, very difficult to even estimate the value of an event like that, and we keep looking for other opportunities to showcase Niagara Falls in a positive light. We're playing host this weekend to a movie shoot, and we're always looking for those opportunities to get the beauty of Niagara in front of the widest possible audience.
Yes, I hear Susan Sarandon is in town, the actress.
I hear that, but I can neither confirm nor deny that.
I think the only one who's here is Kathy Bates.
Well,
wait a minute, John. Is it true that you really didn't even watch the walk over the Little Colorado?
Tony and I, truth be told, Tony and I talked a little bit before the show, and I talked with Peter and the mayor about this. The Wallenda walk, and I have to tell you, ABC said if you don't wear a harness, we will not broadcast this. It was a very
Niagara Falls walk.
Niagara Falls walk, very strict
tethered,
rule, and we covered that. But here for the walk over the canyon, I couldn't watch. Bob Kaczynski and I talked about it too. Knowing he didn't have that harness on, you had to look away. But And
you been with me on the front lines of the Seneca New York State battles back in the early days.
You didn't have a harness on that either.
I kept telling my photographer, we're not moving.
But you were telling me, and I didn't see it at the top, but the Niagara USA spots ran on the Discovery Channel to help promote that.
It was terrific. I think we got another bump out of it in the local area in Niagara Falls. And, the guy's a terrific showman. He really has a warm and outgoing personality. He touches people. They respond well to him. It was a brave feat. I don't know what else you can say.
So will there be some kind of a museum? I mean, Peter, we've been covering this story for a while. And
I would hope he would. I think it's, with his walk over the Niagara Falls, the majestic beauty of seeing the falls in the mist, it would be a wonderful tourist site for years to come.
But yet, when we look at the positives of the Nick Wallenda Walk in doing the research for this show, I know there's some concern about how some of the money's being spent for the Niagara tourism, and the money that's not only spent for some of the ways to bring tourists here, but whether or not there's going to be more money moving forward. I would think that would be a step backward.
Well, you sort of got to find a balance. I guess that's the important thing for the mayor and the city council and other stakeholders, other lawmakers in the area. I'm talking about the state representatives, have to sort of pull together on the same oar and work together to try to find some common ground and move forward. We can't just, it's got to be more than just infrastructure. You got to have a diversity, multicultural attractions. If you want to be a world-class city, you got to be a little world-class. And so money on tourism is important. There are issues of accountability in some cases that need to be aired out and have been, and hopefully they can be reconciled here in the near future and people can work closer together. I know the mayor is hoping to do that going forward now that casino money is in, and let's hope that everybody gets on the same page.
Before I jump into the casino, let's talk a little bit about the tourism. Is it my impression that this is becoming maybe more of a personal issue between the council and John Percy, who's in charge of the tourism division there?
Well, I hope not, but I think statistically, if you look at our performance in the tourism industry segment, our room rates are going up, our occupancy is going up, visitorship has gone up. If the tourism agency isn't causing that, they're at least not getting in the way of it's happening. They did a very effective job, I thought, with only 6 weeks hard notice, pulling together the effort that was made around the Wallenda Walk last year. And if you look at investment in our economy, a lot of the hotel investors in downtown Niagara Falls, New York, are Canadians hedging their bets. Even though they have large hotels on the Canadian side, they obviously see something positive happening with the tourism industry on our side. Now you have the Cuomo administration finally responding to our plea of many years that we need to spend more to promote the tourism industry in Niagara Falls and in the region generally. And I would be concerned that we look like we're in disarray just at the time when they're ready to turn on the faucet of additional funding. So I think this is something that needs to get resolved. It needs to get resolved quickly. And again, if you're an investor and you're thinking about building a hotel or renovating a hotel or building an attraction, if you're Nick Wallenda and you're looking at the possibility of locating something in Niagara Falls, you want to know that there's going to be a stable and professional tourism promotion effort behind your investment for many years into the future.
Let's move to the casino. And I've been in West New York 30 years. Peter, you've been here about 4 years. You gentlemen, lifelong residents. I remember discussion of casinos coming to Niagara Falls back in the 80s, and Dale Volcker, back then in Albany, fighting it, and the governor not going for it. Now it's there, and it's in place. Gentlemen, is this helping or hurting Niagara Falls? It looks great. There are a lot of people that come there, but is it really hurting the businesses that are surrounding it?
Well, the direct employment is a benefit. The revenues that we receive from the casino are a benefit. Many promises were made about spin-off benefits, that it was going to create private sector investment away from the casino. I think that's the area where there have been a lot of questions. One of the things that we do with our casino revenues is we try to level the playing field for local businesses that have to compete against the casino but that are paying sales taxes, property taxes, and so on. So we did, for example, a series of grants and loans for restaurant renovations to help some of our restaurants that have to compete with tax-free restaurants in the compact land, try to preserve their businesses, some of which had been around for many, many decades before the the casino was built. One of the positive signs, we were visited by representatives from the Seneca Development Corporation prior even to the conclusion of the settlement, and they said if we end up coming away from this with a significant pot of money, one of the things we want to do is to set up an investment fund to work on investments off of the reservation land, off of the compact land, because we want to diversify our economy. And we're going to take them up on that. I think we need to find ways of developing the area surrounding the casino. That hasn't been one of the hallmarks of success of the casino so far.
Well, when Political Buzz returns, we'll talk about that land around the casino, what's happening to it, who's buying it up, and what the future might hold in our final segment. So stay with us right here on WBBZ TV, talking about Niagara Falls when we return. Niagara Falls, the topic here on Political Buzz on WBBZ TV, and we talked a little bit in that previous segment about the casino and some of the land surrounding it. And Peter, I want to ask you, because it's no secret that Howard Milstein, who's a close ally of Governor Cuomo's, is buying up a lot of the land, a lot of the parcels around the casino, but we've never heard, at least I haven't heard from Howard Milstein as to who he is and why he's doing it and what's going to happen with the land. Has the Niagara Falls Reporter reached out to him?
Well, the Gazette has tried to reach out in the past.
Gazette, yeah.
We've had discussions or contacted Roger Trevino and Anthony Bergamo. That's been the big question in the 4.5 years I've been in Niagara Falls. The land. Obviously, he's a businessman. He's had land holdings in many different states, and I know in some situations the properties haven't been developed after 5-10 years. It's a question I think everybody is asking. I think there was a belief that when Governor Cuomo was talking about state-run gaming, Mr. Milstein's got almost 200 acres of pretty prime real estate would that be the location of the state-run or Vegas-run casinos if the Senecas and the state did not come to an agreement. The question now is, what are the plans for the future? Will he wait another 10 years for the compact to expire?
And Peter with the Niagara Gazette and Tony of the Niagara Falls Reporter, have you heard anything?
No, the point man up there for NFR, Milstein's corporation there, is
Roger
Trevino.
Yeah.
And, he's pretty quiet right now. They're sitting on about 140 plus acres. They really haven't done much with it. They've kept it clean, I guess, paid taxes, right? But they haven't done anything development-wise. Speculation was, as Pete said, that maybe they were sitting on that for a gaming opportunity. That's not going to happen in the near future. I wrote a while back about the possibilities of a stadium going in to Niagara Falls. That's still a possibility. The Ralph won't last much beyond the extension that they got with the new agreement.
You're big on that, Tony.
Well, stadiums, they're not going to be where they are now. That stadium is going to be done in 2022, whenever the lease is up, and you can't rebuild the whole thing. They've scotch taped it together here for a while, but it's not going to last. The new owner is either going to go somewhere else and get another stadium, or we're going to have to find a way, or he's going to find supporters here or somebody to find enough money to build another stadium. And now there was a big presentation today as we taped this show in Buffalo. I don't know what the latest is at it, but that's about the Haciendas project downtown.
Right.
That's got problems with getting in and out, but a lot of people are high on it. But Niagara Falls has got the land. It's closer to the Canadian market. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Mayor, let me go back to one thing we brought up a little bit earlier, kind of the relationship between you and the city council. And I know, Tony, you're close to Sam Frachon on the city council.
Well, I talk to everybody up there.
Yeah, no, I know you do. Yeah, and I know, like, Sam, for instance, has his own cable show, and I know he talks about... I mean, the mayor talked about kind of bringing everybody to the table. Do you think that, based on what you've covered, is that something everybody needs to do?
I think so. I wrote a little bit about it in a column this week. I think it's important that people come together and not bicker. And, there's been a lot of stress because of the fiscal crisis. That created a lot of tension. There's a guarantee now that the money's going to be coming in for a while, and they're going to get out of the hole short term. Still got a lot of challenges, as you said. So I think people need to work together. Let's hope that happens.
So ultimately, well, go ahead, Peter, and then I'll have the last word.
I think what Tony is saying, and once again, being there for 4.5 years, I think the citizens and the residents of Niagara Falls have gone through 20, 30 years of seeing negative, no growth. And at some point, I think many of the residents have given up because they've not seen those steps forward to where they're seeing new manufacturing, whether it's green manufacturing or expansion in the tourism area that is providing jobs and helping keep their kids in Niagara County and Western New York.
Mayor, I'll let you have the last word. We've talked about a lot of different things here, but your vision for the future.
Well, there are a lot of positive things happening in Niagara Falls. I told Governor Cuomo it was either going to be an engine pulling the region forward or an anchor holding it back. There's no middle way for us because we're famous, right? We've got the green economic development occurring. The Green Pact development's going to open, $460 million investment. Again, a Canadian company investing in the U.S. economy. We've got 7 hotel projects at one stage or another of development in the downtown area. But we've got to keep that positive momentum going. We're somewhere around the tipping point, but we need to get past that. And I think that does require us making certain that we're presenting ourselves to the outside world, whether you're talking about political leaders at higher levels of government, or in particular when you're talking about the investment community, as a place that knows where it's going, knows what it has to do in order to effectively welcome the outside world. And if we do that, I think that this next 5 or 10 years could be a tremendous period in the history of
And we'll
Niagara
celebrate
Falls.
the music festival in Niagara Falls this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
That's right. Starting out Friday night on 3rd Street and then shifting to Old Falls Street around the corner Saturday and Sunday. 42 bands, 3 stages, 58 artists, 20-plus food vendors. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Sounds like a fun time.
Sounds like a fun time. Peter Mio from the Niagara Gazette, thank
Yes,
you for
thank
joining
you.
us.
Glad to be here.
Tony Farina, the Niagara Falls Reporter, Seneca One Niagara, thank you. Mayor Deister, we'll see you again, I hope, here on Political Buzz.
Always a pleasure.
We'll have a special guest coming up for a special taping Tuesday, July 2nd. Russell Salvatore will be here live in our studio with his new book, Well Done. We'll celebrate his life and legacy. We invite you to join us in our studio right here at the Eastern Hills Mall. And watch us here on Political Buzz every Friday night and Sunday morning at 10 a.m. on your hometown television station.